Welcome to The Explainer, where today we're tackling something huge in software testing. We're going to talk about how to stop writing tests that constantly break and start building tests that can actually think. This is all about making our tests context-aware, which makes them smarter and way more resilient.
Okay, so if you're a dev or a QA engineer, you know this feeling, right? You spend all this time writing what you think is a perfect test, and then the very next day, some tiny UI tweak happens, and your whole test suite just explodes. It seriously feels like you're building a house of cards. And here's the kicker. The problem isn't really your tests. It's that they're basically blind. They're trying to find their way through these super complex, dynamic apps without any clue about what's actually happening on the screen. They're missing that one critical thing, context. All right, so let's dig into this. Why do our tests keep breaking all the time? Well, it really boils down to this fundamental mismatch between how we've been writing tests and what modern apps have become.
Here's the core of the problem. On one hand, you've got our tests, which are totally static. They follow this rigid, step-by-step script, kind of like a pre-printed map. But then you look at our apps, they're incredibly dynamic. They've got content that changes for every user, feature flags, different roles. It's like trying to navigate a city that's constantly under construction using a map you printed last year. It's just a recipe for failure.
So how do we fix this mess? How do we ditch that old paper map and give our tests a live, real-time GPS instead? Well, the answer is a whole new way of thinking about automation. It's a total paradigm shift called context-driven testing. The idea is simple but powerful. Instead of just blindly following a script, the test actually adapts its behavior based on what's happening in the app, right now, in real time. It reacts to the app state, user actions, you name it. And the secret key that unlocks all of this? It's something called the Model Context Protocol, or MCP for short. You can think of it as a universal language. It's just a structured way for the test to grab all that rich context from the application, like who the user is or what the UI looks like, and send it over to some kind of decision-making engine. Now, to actually build this, you gotta have the right tools. And when we're talking about modern front-end applications, JavaScript is, hands down, the perfect language for the job. So let's talk about why JS is such a powerhouse for this. First off, it runs natively right in the browser. This is a huge deal because it means it has direct access to everything. The DOM, the user session, all of it. It can see what's really going on. It also integrates beautifully with the very frameworks like React and Vue that are creating these dynamic experiences. Plus, the tools we have now, like Playwright and Cypress, give us these incredibly fast feedback loops we need to build smart tests. And finally, because it lives in the browser, it can easily track all those little contextual clues, like changes to local storage or complex user journeys. Now, this isn't just some high-level idea. There's an actual architectural blueprint for how to pull this off. Let's take a look at how it all fits together. Okay, let's walk through this. At the bottom, layer 1, that's your standard automation tool. Think Cypress or Playwright, the thing that's actually clicking and typing. Then layer 2 is where the magic starts. That's the context engine, and its only job is to watch the browser and slurp up all that juicy runtime data. It passes that info up to layer 3, the model, which is basically the app's rulebook. It knows all the valid states and user flows. Then, in layer 4, an AI or some other decision engine takes the live context from layer 2, compares it to the rulebook in layer 3, and tells the test what to do next. Layer 5 just saves the results. It's a perfect feedback loop. Action, observation, decision, repeat. Okay, I know what you might be thinking. This sounds cool in theory, but what does it actually look like? Let's check out a few real-world scenarios that you've probably run into 100 times. Scenario 1. This is a classic, right? A dashboard that totally changes its layout and widgets depending on whether you're logged in as an admin or an editor. This is usually where tests go to die. So check this out. Cypress, our automation tool, grabs the context from the app. It sees, okay, user role is editor, and they have the beta UI feature turned on. It packages that up and sends it to the AI. The AI looks at that and goes, oh, an editor? Then I need to make sure the special editor widget is visible. And boom, it generates that test assertion on the fly. No hard-coded logic, just pure real-time adaptation. All right, next up, e-commerce. You know the drill. A checkout page that's a total nightmare of different languages, currencies, and all that legal text, depending on where in the world you are.
With MCP, the test just grabs the context. It sees the locale is French and the region is the EU. It sends that off, and the AI instantly knows, okay, this is France, we need to check for the correct French tax disclaimer. And it builds the right assertion right then and there. I mean, think about how many brittle, region-specific tests this one piece of dynamic logic replaces. And for the final boss of brittle tests, what about a UI that changes based on live data from the backend? Like, say, a user's billing status. Traditional tests just can't handle this gracefully. Here, we're using Playwright. The context engine sniffs out the state and sees, uh-oh, the account status is past due. It sends that info up, and the AI immediately sends back a command, assert that the payment warning banner is visible. The test is adapting to the data, not just the UI code. It's so much smarter. Okay, so what's the big picture here? What should you really take away from all this? The bottom line is that context-aware testing isn't just a nice-to-have. It's about building automation that actually works and lasts. So let's talk about how you can get started. So let's just recap the big ideas, right? First, our old static tests, they're just not cut out for today's dynamic apps. It's a bad fit. Second, going context-aware makes your tests way more relevant and, honestly, just a heck of a lot more reliable. Third, that model context protocol, the MCP, is the magic bridge that connects the app state to the test's brain. And finally, JavaScript is the perfect language to build that bridge. And the best part is, you can start small. Here's a 5-step plan to get you going. First, just take a look at your current tests and ask, how context-aware are we right now? Then, try a small pilot project with Cypress or Playwright. Build a tiny context engine that just captures a few key things. From there, you can start integrating some decision logic and just iterate, watching your test reliability go up. You don't have to boil the ocean on day one. Look, this isn't science fiction. This shift from static to dynamic testing, it's happening right now. It really is becoming the new standard for high-quality engineering, which leaves us with one big question. Are your tests just blindly following a script, or are they ready to actually understand the app they're testing?